I believe the most difficult job in the world right now is the one that has, the one where it's the one that someone has in WWE where they have to keep an eye on AEW's calendar to book NXT shows. I think right now that's the most difficult job in the world, because you can't just like decide for yourself and decide, oh, we have this date open here and clear, and we have a great deal on this venue, and we're gonna book it for Great American Bash. No, you got to see what AEW is doing, and then you have to book something on the same day at the exact same time to counter program whatever AEW has going on, because otherwise otherwise what is NXT for? Basically, it is. It's getting kind of sad at this point. Look, to be very clear, I know this is nothing new, okay? WWE has done this for decades to multiple promotions, to varying degrees of severity, right? So I completely get it. In this circumstance here, I don't recall there being anything so blatant and just outright that has happened so often in such a short period of time as what WWE has been doing since AEW announced the Arena Mexico show. It's just been kind of crazy, right? If you don't remember what happened with the Arena Mexico show, well, AEW announces that they're going to have a show in Arena Mexico, the home of CMLL. And then a couple of days later after that, WWE announces that they're going to do a Worlds Collide. No, that they're going to do not even the Worlds, they're still doing the Worlds Collide show on June 7th, but there's also going to be a Triple Mania show that is going to be held on the, I believe, the Sunday or the Saturday before the Arena Mexico show. So it's not exactly it's not exactly counter programming, but going into that region to take away some attention and whatnot. Like, this is what they're doing. I think it's nonetheless very clear that that the intent is nonetheless to pull out a Triple Mania show out of their ass, just out of nowhere, to sort of steal some thunder. Yes, absolutely. That's absolutely what's going on here with the Triple Mania purchase, right? Then at Saturday night's main event last weekend, WWE announced that they were going to have the Great American Bash show that was going to show up. Was going to be held, soon. They didn't announce a date when they announced it at the Saturday night's main event show. And I went into the MrWarrenHayes Show Discord, and there is tangible proof right there. You can go in the WWE channel, I believe. And I said specifically, the WWE announced the Great American Bash, announced an NXT show, Great American Bash. And I would not be surprised if they run that in the afternoon on the day of All In, while All In is on, because All In starts at 3 Eastern, 2 Central, right? I was like, do you want to bet that that's what they're going to do? And guess what they did? Guess what they fucking did? Great American Bash will be taking place in Atlanta on Saturday, July 12th. Press release issued by WWE confirms that it will be taking place in the afternoon, meaning the show should have at least some overlap with AEW All in Texas. The AEW pay-per-view has a start time of 3 p.m. Eastern. Great American Bash's exact start time was not mentioned in WWE's press release. Great American Bash is one of 3 WWE shows being held in Atlanta that weekend as part of a takeover of the city. Saturday night's main event will take place at State Farm Arena on July 12th, with State Farm Arena then hosting WWE's All-Women's Evolution PLE on July 13th. And there's combo tickets and all this stuff. Boy, they're really swinging hard. And you're going to tell me that this is the only weekend they could put all of this together? Just a pure coincidence? There's no coincidence. There's no coincidence. There is no shot at all that this is a coincidence. And you know why it's not a coincidence? Because there's a report that was put out today by WrestleVotes. Now, we all know here on the channel, we do not trust Joey Votes. We don't think, we don't always, we have mocked his lack of accuracy in the past, but it seems like recently, he's working very tight with WWE, like extremely tight. And he says that he's reporting that an episode of NXT TV will emanate from the former ECW arena on Tuesday, August 19, 8 days before the residency that AEW announced, what, at the most 10 days ago, maybe even just a week ago, a couple of days ago. It begins on Wednesday, August 27 through September 11. Again, these are not coincidences, folks. These are not coincidences. I don't know why. This is all extremely purposeful. WWE knows exactly what it's doing here. 100%. And you have to think about this counter programming. Outside of the bubble of just you have to think of this outside of the bubble. Well, Atlanta and Texas, two different, the two different states, it's not going to affect ticket sales. It's not even a question of ticket sales anymore. It's not even a question of ticket sales might come into effect for the NXT show, but I don't know. I don't necessarily think it is. The idea here is to take attention away. They want to take attention away. That's why they ran, that's why they run, fucking Battleground, the NXT show at the same time as Double or Nothing. That's why it's to take attention away from AEW, so that the discourse online is not entirely about AEW. They'll tell you, or Triple H will tell you, that online fans, they're annoying and whatnot, and they don't like them. But when it comes down to it, they will fight tooth and nail to get to be able to say the most social event since the Super Bowl or whatever the fuck, right? Which is a terrible thing, a stupid metric. The most social. Who gives a fuck? Going around touting their numbers. WWE has more subscribers across all its platforms than the NBA, the NFL, the NHL, and so on. And you're like, oh my God. And that's what they want. They don't want the buzz to go to anyone else but them. So it's not even a question of moving on to that. It's not even a question of them trying to impact sales in another market. It's more like, well, we did it first, or we're still around, we're doing things. Trick Williams defeating Joe Hendry. That took up a lot of conversation on Sunday night. That's what these things are for. WWE is all about the virality. It's always been about moments, but I think we can push this a little further and talk about viral moments. That's what we can do here. We can start talking about viral moments more so than just WrestleMania moments and all this shit. They want stuff to be able to be shared in chunks, bite size, on Twitter, on TikTok, and so on and so forth, and it's affected the product in that way. When you start realizing that WWE is a company that is based on creating virality, well, you can see how it has ill-affected the product overall, right? So we're not done. So, I'm pointing this out, and I can't help but find it's funny because of how much effort they're putting into this, And then, there's people saying, oh, I feel bad for the NXT talent. Why? Why do you feel bad for the NXT talent? Oh, because they're getting thrown around right and left. They're getting paid. They'll go wherever their boss tells them to go, and they'll do their thing. Why are we feeling bad for them? Why are we feeling bad for them? There's no one to feel bad for here. I don't even feel all that bad for AEW. I just think it's, I think it's tremendous. Because this is the kind of shit that we've been saying for years that WWE does. And a lot of people who weren't around in the day when they were doing this kind of shit, oh, it's a different company, it's a new way of doing things, and they're back to doing the exact same things. And they're doing this, mark my words, they're doing this because they perceive AEW as competition. We have to abandon this idea that WWE feels that AEW is not competition. Those days are behind us. They're gone. And the day, there's a specific moment in time where everything changed in WWE's perception of AEW, where maybe at a time they were laughing it off and scoffing and going, these people are not competition, legitimately. But there is one moment in time that changed WWE's perception in regards to whether or not AEW was competitive or not. And that is the day that AEW signed its new deal with Warner Brothers. That is the precise moment in time. From that point on, WWE probably looked at everything and like, okay, well, these guys are the real deal. They're serious. It's not another TNA. It's not another fly-by-night promotion. These guys are for real. These guys have the power to disrupt all the models that we've been setting up for years. Because it's not even a question. It's not even a question of gates or ratings all that much. It's not even that merchandise sales. WWE is $1 billion company. Their benefactors are major media conglomerations and the crown prince of Saudi Arabia. That everything else is just like gravy. They don't give a fuck. The problem that WWE has with AEW is how it affects its operations. Because of the presence of AEW, WWE cannot pay the wrestlers. They can't go into a model like UFC has, where UFC just quite simply, shortchanges, gouges its fighters. Okay, they can't go down that model because unlike with UFC, there is another company who can dump out oodles amounts of money to sign big time wrestlers and give them big time contracts. So what does that do? It forces WWE to raise their salary floor if they want to retain their talent. So that straight out the gate is an annoyance. It's also an annoyance for them when it's going to be time to renegotiate. Media deals. Because if NXT, completely out of control here, Warren. If AEW is available as a wrestling product, 52 weeks a year, programming, whatever, like 5 hours of programming a week, then stuff for your streaming service and all that, all the benefits that AEW has, which are the same benefits as WWE. What if AEW comes to your network with the same types of promises, but costs less? Then that becomes a problem for WWE's renegotiations, because then it gives the networks leverage where they're like, well, your competition does this. And I hear and I agree with the strategy that people say, well, WWE keep pumping out content. You know, they create all of these programmings, and it's to saturate the market, right? Right? It's to saturate the market, to create, you know, Evolve, and then to create LFG, you know, Legends and Future Geeks, and then, you know, all of the other ancillary programming, the stuff that they do on A&E, and then now the podcasts. Now you have the Stephanie McMahon podcast. You have the Cody Rhodes Let's Drink Some Vodka podcast. And then they flood the market with all of this content. And people say that's a way to drown out AEW. Maybe. But I think it's more of a situation where it's like WWE wants to show that it can create oodles amount of content in a flash because we have access to all of this talent, and we can create whatever you want. We even have a title for social media. If your social media network wants to benefit from the speed title, we can create that for you too. We can create content exclusively for your video platform if you want it. Because then they realize that the only way they can continue to have a true heads up on AEW is to show that they can create more content than AEW. And then they can charge more money for it. That's the only way. It's the only way. And that's their main issue with AEW. That is the principal problem that they have. Is that because otherwise they'd leave TNA, you know, they left TNA all of these years do its own little thing because they never saw them as a threat. They've left MLW go and do its own little thing after all. Never cared. MLW, they don't give a shit. AEW, that's a problem. That's a problem for them because AEW is playing in their territory, and it has the potential to affect its bottom line. And we talked about this, or I talked about it on the podcast. TKO, sharks. These people are sharks, and their loyalty is to money. They will shortchange whatever needs to be shortchanged to ensure that their bottom dollar keeps growing and keeps getting bigger. They don't give a shit. So, you know, create all the content as cheaply as possible, sell it for the biggest price. It's just as simple as that. But if there's another guy in the same space providing the same type of service, it's like, whoa, wait a second. So that's why they talk about, oh, we're a show about professional wrestling or a movie like professional wrestling about professional wrestling. We're not professional wrestling because they want to that's how they feel they can create value, because it's a show. It's an entertainment product. It's a universe, you know? So all of these moves here is just to make sure that their profile stays high, first and foremost. And AEW's gets shortchanged in these situations. Because I'm starting to feel, and I don't have the data, okay, but it's my gut that's talking. And folks, I trust my gut. I would think that over the years, my gut has shown that it can be trusted by you as well. But my gut says that less and less pro wrestling fans are crossing over with WWE today. I'm not talking about an exodus. I'm not talking about people disappearing. But I think there was a time in very recent memory where if you had a show on a Saturday night, a pay-per-view on a Saturday night, you would clearly see that people would en masse choose to go watch whatever was on Peacock as opposed to watching Collision. So you couldn't really say there's AEW fans and there's WWE fans, because on nights where there was a WWE pay-per-view, Collision would take a hit in the ratings. It still does, but not as bad. And I'm starting to feel like the ticket buying public is regaining confidence in regards to AEW's programming, weekly TV programming, and they're starting to buy more and more tickets. I talk about it practically every week with the Dynamite review, and we can see that the arrows for live attendance on the weekly shows, on the weekly tapings for Dynamite, are pointing upward. We're not talking about a sudden spike, and we're not suddenly returning to basketball arenas, but you can see that the curve is going upward. The arrows are pointing up. The cumulative yearly average so far keeps rising for attendance. So I don't think that NXT going to the 2300 arena 2 weeks before or whatever, 2 weeks before the residency, AEW's residency, is going to deter people from not buying tickets for the residency. From what I understand, the combos for the residency are ridiculously cheap. Like if you buy the combo for all of the shows, like it's an incredible deal. So I don't think that's why they're doing it. They're doing it to take attention away, to detract attention. That's all they're doing. And yes, they're using NXT as fodder in the situation. They are absolutely 100% using NXT as fodder to get this over. I would like to see them this is what I'd like. Instead of using NXT, if you're listening, Paul Levesque, have the balls to do it with one of your main shows. Have the balls to do it with Raw. Have the balls to do it with SmackDown. Instead of your third brand, your minor leagues. Have the balls to do it with one of the main brands. This is the utmost sign that AEW is doing well and is successful. Because if AEW was down in the dirt, was nosediving, was dying, like all of the grifters tell us, or like all of the weirdos on Reddit seem to believe, if AEW truly was in a downward spiral, was not successful, WWE would not give a fuck. They haven't given a fuck for TNA to try and fuck with TNA in all of its existence. Same with MLW, because they never posed, because WWE never saw them as big enough, successful enough to be a problem. If AEW was in that position, if AEW was dying, WWE would continue to just ignore them, but they're not. And they are coming hard. Like, this is actually preposterous. It's kind of sad. I don't have a problem with there being a competition. Mind you, I don't have a problem with this being a competition. This is the kind of stuff that I expect. But this often, in such a short amount of time, it's kind of sad. It's kind of pathetic. And it's interesting because, again, this is something that I've talked about on the reviews over the past couple of months. AEW doesn't ever mention WWE anymore. There was a time in AEW where it felt like everyone wanted to go to AEW, to WWE, right? You remember that? Like MJF, saying that, oh, I've got Bruce Pritchard's number on speed dial. What was it? The battle of 2024. What was it? Anyway, like his contract renegotiation, and Ricky Starks was dropping hints. Everyone was dropping hints about wanting to go to WWE. And it'd come up once in a while and they'd crack wise about it. And for months, haven't even mentioned. There hasn't been any mentions. WWE on TV, just doing our job. And look at that. Product is better. Feels focused. Feels like it has a real direction. No more of this bullshit on TV anymore. There's no more of this bullshit on TV. What are they worried about? What are they afraid about? Billion-dollar company. They're bankrolled by the fucking crown prince of Saudi Arabia. What are they afraid of? What could they possibly be afraid of?